bounce houses. It's all giggles and games. Until this happens. This recent video of a bounce house being swept away in New York raises serious concerns. With bouncy walls and bouncy bottoms, how dangerous can they be?
Clip the weights. Make sure it's stretched out nice and tight. And there you go, it's lifted.
According to Ohio Mobile Gaming in Cleveland, it's not the bounce house that's dangerous, it's how it's set up.
If this thing weren't tethered to the ground, you have to look at this, it's inflated. Right now, you could pick up one corner of this and walk it around yourself. You've got state requirements, and when you have a situation like that and you see something flying across a field, you know that none of that was followed.
OMG owns the same slide that blew away in New York.
It's a slide with the same type of massing on the side. I think that one was a little bit taller. Like I said, as the wind shear hits the side, it flows underneath and then it pulls it right up.
There's not a lot of surface area actually touching the ground, so I could pick this up with one hand and swing this thing in a big circle. So even though this is 450 pounds, that's 550 pounds. You know, a 10 or 12-year-old kid could grab one corner if it wasn't tethered and move it wherever they want.
OMG says the weather plays a major role.
If you have winds over 15 miles an hour, you can't have something like this up. It needs to be dropped at 15 miles an hour. It's posted pretty clearly on here. When you go over your checklist with the customers, it's explained to them pretty clearly.
Now, according to OMG, the state's stance on inflatables is that each of the operators have to abide by a set of rules and regulations. But according to them, it differs from manufacturer to manufacturer.
Every inflatable in the state of Ohio has to be regulated and inspected by the Department of Agriculture. Every January we have to get inspections done on each and every one of these units.
According to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, an estimated 31,000 children nationwide were injured in bounce houses between 2003 and 2007, an average of 17 trips to the emergency room a day.
They're not babysitters. You can't have your children in there and go and have your party and come back and hope the kids are going to be all right. There has to be an attendant that hasn't been drinking and hasn't been partying. They're visually watching the kids at all times.
Laura Crosgrove has taken little Blake and Avery to at least 5 different bounce house parties. One was canceled last week.
The storm was coming in and they didn't set up, and that's what you have to do. Sometimes you just have to reschedule your party.
And while it's easy for children to get carried away inside a bounce house, OMG says it is up to parents and supervisors to make sure the house isn't carried away with a child inside.
You can't let them slide down into somebody else. They can't climb up the slide without using the steps, and they all want to. You just make sure they don't and keep your eye on them, and they have a good time, and it tires them out greatly.
It can be safe if it's done properly. If they're not set up properly, it can certainly be a very dangerous thing.
Melissa Reed, Fox 8 News.